This video is Axis Empires, and we are now starting the spring of 1942. Just a little overview of where we're at here. The United States commitment level is now increased to level 1, and the USA is now at war. And at this point in time on the European map, the Axis tide marker is at 2 victory points. So we go to the Axis turn, March, April of 1942, and the strategy chosen is Speer appointed minister. Essentially, Germany appoints Speer as the Minister of Armaments and Munitions. So we have a historical note on this card from Adolf. Quote, England, however, will win nothing in this war. It will lose, and then perhaps it will gradually begin to realize that the fate of nations and peoples must not be entrusted to the care of a cynical drunkard, nor of people who are mentally ill. End of quote. Projection much is all I can say to that. But with this card, German Headquarters A is now placed in the delay box. Additionally, 1 Panzer and 6 Infantry Corps are deployed directly to the map as a result of the Speer appointment. Then there are continued attacks on the Eastern Front. I don't have a picture of this, but the 2nd Panzer Army is along the Donets River. And then in North Africa, really, DAC isn't doing anything. There's just no action in Libya at this point. So we go to the Western Allies portion of the turn, and then we have, for this strategy, it's the Arcadia Conference. So the Western Allies hold the Arcadia Conference. This is basically Roosevelt and Churchill meeting in Washington, D.C. And Winston Churchill is quoted on this card as saying, no, this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. End of quote. So this conference card allows the Commonwealth to add an infantry unit and an armor unit to the map during the replacements segment. And then during the political events segment, they are able to collect military aid. Also, we do have some action in North Africa. The Commonwealth forces attack the Germans and finally force them to retreat to Benghazi. So then we go to the Soviet Union strategy. They play the historical card, Great Patriotic War. So this card has General Fedorenko reorganizing the Red Army. And this allows for some additional units. The Soviet Union places the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th tank armies in the delay box. And then the Soviet Union also places 12 more infantry units and a tank unit directly to the map. The High Command mandates an offensive as a result of the political table. So there is an attack, which is successful, and it forces a German army to retreat. Then the Soviet commander runs an additional offensive, and this gets a few exchange results, which is okay as far as the Soviet player is concerned. He wins the battle of attrition. So that brings the March-April 1942 turn to a close on the European map. We're now going to go over to the Pacific map. The Japanese reveal their next strategy, which is called Victory Disease. The Imperial Japanese Navy urges continued offensive, but the Army refuses to take troops from China for this. And we have a quote on this card from Yamamoto, where he said, "The mindless rejoicing at home is really appalling. It makes me fear that the first blow against Tokyo will make them wilt at once." End of quote. So the Japanese player adds the 3rd Air Force unit into the force pool and then takes some replacements. And also Japan has to roll on the political table, and unfortunately, the result is command failure. So the Soviet player decides to put the command failure marker in China. You can see that in the picture here in Kangsu, the command failure marker. And that means that the Japanese army is going to be having problems there in any combat that they want to do. And the air support unit is moved into the delay box. So the Japanese forces in China attack. They don't have their air support, so that's unfortunate for them, and the attack is launched against Changsha. You can see in the picture there that the nationalists, Chinese, have the first army band there, and this Japanese attack is repulsed, and the Japanese suffer losses as well. There's also another attack launched in the Philippines, and both sides suffer losses here, but the Japanese troops do gain some ground. You can see that in the picture here in Leyte. But the United States still has troops in Manila and Davao. Now we go to the Western Allies' turn, and they reveal their strategy. It's the historical choice. It is the Doolittle raid. So bombers from the USS Hornet stage a daring raid over Japan, and the Allies roll on the cards table, and the result is Banzai. So the Japanese decides to resolve this as a fleet action, and the British Eastern Fleet is placed in the naval delay box along with the Japanese fleet. Then the 3rd Marine moves to Hawaii from the mainland, and then British forces land in Bombay in India. Then we go to the Soviet Union, and they launch counter-offensives in Eastern Europe. With their card, the strategy is War Progress 2. So this card allows the Soviets to consult the political table, and the end of the die rolling is conflicting plans, so basically no effect. And that brings the March-April of 1942 turn to an end, but we're going to continue by going back to the European map for April-May of 1942. So the Germans attack. It's mud season. You can see I have a picture here, and it shows the mud marker reminding me that it's mud season. And so this is going to result against there's going to be a few attacks here, and against pretty much focusing on weak Soviet units. Then during the Commonwealth part of the turn, they get military aid. And then their main area of action is in North Africa, but the Western Desert Force basically is idle, and I don't really do anything with it. And then the Soviet Union rolls on their political tables, and they get another mandated offensive. So unfortunately, it's mud, so that's not good for the Soviets as an attacker. And they end up having an exchange in the attack that they launch, but that's what the Soviets want, to get exchanges, because it whittles down the German manpower. There's also another counterattack launched near Moscow, and that relieves the city of some of the pressure from the Axis armies that are attacking there. But that pretty much brings April-May of 1942 to an end on the European map. So we'll finish out the turn by going to the Pacific map. And during the Japanese turn, there's another naval battle, and one Japanese surface fleet and a U.S. Navy surface fleet end up going to the naval delay box, taking them out of action for a bit because of this sea battle. Then the Japanese infantry land troops in Malaya and in the Philippines, and the army in China is facing weather problems. There's severe storms, so the commanders don't want to participate in offensive operations under these conditions. It's just not going to be very fruitful for them. In the Western Allies part of the turn, the United States is able to move an infantry replacement into Honolulu, and then British forces in India maneuver toward the action in Malaya. You can see in my picture here, I've got, two Commonwealth Indian units just outside of Mandalay, approaching the Japanese 14th Army in Rangoon. Also, the Nationalist Chinese, which I don't have a picture of here, add some replacements in Kiangsu and reform the Third War Zone in Hanyang. And then finally, the Soviet Union, which are fairly idle in the Pacific map, do get to roll on the political event table, but they get conflicting plans, and so that's no event. So we bring the spring of 1942 to a conclusion. I thank you for watching, and stay tuned if you'd like to see what happens during the summer of 1942. Have a great day.